Hello, welcome to this new tutorial. In this video, we are going to show you how to record transactions in SARS Accounting 100. As an accountant or working in a company and using the accounting software, you have to record transactions in the journal, in your computer, not in papers and so on. So all what you do on paper is going to be done in the machine, and for that you have to understand how it actually functions. So when this software is open, for you to create the journal, first of all you have to make sure that you have created the journal codes. The journal code simply represents the books where we record particular transaction. So here we are not going to use something like classical journal. A classical journal is a journal where all sort of transactions are just recorded inside. No, we're not going to do something like that. We're going to create different journals for different transactions, and we have already done that in the previous video. We saw here how to create a different journal codes. So you can just go to the video. I'm going to drop the link in the group in the description of this video. So when we've already created this journal code, you see that different journal types. We have the purchase journal, a sales journal, cash journal, general journal, and that of position, which is for the balance sheet. When you create this, now you can go into recording transaction, because when you come at the level of process, because to record transaction you get to process, and you come to entry journals, you are going to see all the journal codes for the different months in our operating period. Like this is an operating period 2019-2020, starting from June to June of the year 2020. So if for example here we created if for example here we created 5 journal codes, you are going to see the different journal codes for each month. Like for example, just for June, you are going to see the bank journal, cash journal, end of year journal, general journal, purchase journal, sales journal. Same thing in July, same thing in August, same thing in September, same thing in August, and so on. So when you have this, now when you want to create a transaction for a particular month, you just get to that month, you choose the journal, and you get to it. For this video, we are going to work specifically on purchase and sales journal because they are very critical. We are going to have an example here, or a sample of how transactions are being recorded. If we are recording a sales transaction without VAT, this is how it's going to look like, right? If you have ever had to know how to record transactions, normally you should know something like this. We are going to debit customers against supply, against sales of goods. So in such accounting 100, there's very one key important thing you need to know, that all transactions are recorded accordingly in their separate or different journals. So if we're making a sales transaction, it is going to be recorded in the sales journal, and the settlement is going to be made in another journal, which is a treasury account journal, which can be a cash journal or a bank journal. What do we mean by this? What I mean by this is that for every transaction in such accounting 100, when you want to record, you have to record that purchase or sales as if it is on credit for the first time. So you are going to record, for example, the sales in the sales journal like this on credit, by taking into consideration that you're debiting the customer, before you now go in the bank journal or in the cash journal and record the settlement by crediting this customer against the means of payment. So that's how it's done. So in no way, or you should never ever go in a sales journal and debit or credit a bank account or a cash account. No, you can't do that, because there's already a journal for this type of transaction, for these bank transactions, for these cash transactions. So in purchase journals and in sales journals, we are using third parties such as customers and suppliers respectively. Like for this case, you can see this is a sales transaction. We're debiting the customer against sales of goods, and then we'll come in the bank journal if it was done by bank, and debit the bank, meaning bank money is coming in against the supplier, and it still boils up to 5 to 1 against 701, crediting 5 to 1, debiting 5 21 and the crediting 701. So that's it. When it is liable to VAT, you see it's just the same thing, right? Just that when we're creating tax codes, we said that when we are creating a tax code, we always attach a sales of goods account in such a way that it should always calculate the amount based on the percentage we give. So it will always look up to this 701 1 million and automatically calculate the amount of VAT and give it to us. So we go to maybe we get to purchase transaction. Here you will have purchase of goods. Made a mistake. Against, for example, a supplier. Okay, against a supplier. Against a supplier. So if this transaction is without, for example, VAT, this what is going to happen, right? You're going to have sales of goods to a supplier, and this is being done in the purchase journal before you come and record the settlement. Should in case the settlement is made, you're going to come in the cash or in the bank journal and record the transaction or the settlement of that transaction. So this is how it goes. Let me put here bank. If the transaction is liable to VAT, obviously you see you are going to have here VAT recoverable, whereby this VAT recoverable amount is being calculated automatically based on the amount which is at the level of 601, because when we're creating this tax code, we made in such a way that 601 should be attached to it. So all the transactions of purchases are going to be done according to the third party in the purchase journal. Then settlement is going to be done in the cash or in the bank journal. So let's get to it. Let's get to our work. So for example, if I want to record a transaction in the month of April, or in whatsoever month, I just come, for example, I want to make a purchase transaction. I'll come, for example, in the month of September. I'll look for where purchase journal is located for the month of September, and this is it. So when I double click on it, this is the interface. So when this interface is opened, I have the possibility to start recording my journal. I'm going to take into consideration that this transaction was made on the 4th day of the month. We use the tab key to navigate and arrive at the general account number, and I'll put the general account number for sales, which is 601. I use the tab key and I click on purchase of goods, which has appeared up here. I use the tab key and I put the amount of the purchases of goods. I'll put 1 million and click on enter. You see the total debit is 1 million. So on this same date, I will come at the level of general account number and choose the VAT account. So if, for example, you have forgotten the account number you created for a particular account, you can just put any figure or anything. You use the tab key. This dialog box is going to appear for you to choose the account number. Should in case the account number is not existing yet, you can create it from here. Okay, you can always create a new account number. No need in creating all the account number at the level of the chart of accounts. You can create it here. So the account number I want to use here is VAT recoverable on purchases at 19.25%. When I click on it, you will see the entry comment is going to be highlighted. I click on it here, VAT recoverable at 19.25%, and you realize that it has automatically calculated the 19.25% of 1 million, and you can see the amount is given on the debit side. All this because when we're creating our tax rate, we made in such a way that this VAT rate of 19.25% should be attached to 601. So from here I click on enter, and this is it. Now I have to give the means of payment, which is going to be on credit. Remember, in a purchase journal, we cannot have a bank or a cash account number. We are going to have a third party's account number. So at this level, I'm going to choose the third party's account number, which is the supplier. But I cannot put it here. I'm going to put it at the level of SP account, like the third party's account. So I'm going to choose a supplier. So I'll just put any figure and I look for the supplier I want to bring in. I'm going to call for supplier Smith. When I click on supplier Smith, I click on his name here for it to appear here, and you see automatically it has summed the purchase 601 and the 44522, and it has credited the amount. So that's how simple it is. So when I click on enter, you see the total debit is equal to total credit, and you see the voucher number has moved from 1 to 2, waiting that I should record another transaction. So this is how you record a transaction in Sash Accounting 100. This is a purchase transaction, and in the purchase journal we are going to make it on credit. Now if this transaction was settled, or if we settled our suppliers in this case, let's say for example by cash, we'll close this journal. You see, when we record a journal, you will see actually here how something is showing, like you see something, an icon here. So since this transaction was made by cash, for example, I'm going to look for the cash journal in the month of April. You see, I'm not recording the settlement in the purchase journal. I'm going to make it in the cash journal or in the bank journal, depending on how the transaction was made. So I'm taking in consideration that it was settled by cash. I come to April, I double click, and I open this out. From here, I'm going to say that maybe the settlement was done on the 5th, like the transaction was done on the 4th and the settlement was done on the 5th. So I'm going to put the 5th day. I use tab at the level of the general account number. Remember, from this our sample we had here, we're going to take directly this. So this is a transaction I recorded. Sales of goods against a customer. So normally this transaction is supposed to be sales of goods against the means of payment, right? But there is a third party which is coming in. This third party, you see, it is being cancelled by crediting. Like if you want to cancel an account which was credited, to cancel it, we are going to debit it, right? So here I'm just going to debit back the supplier. Sorry, this one is supposed to be supplier. I'm supposed to debit the supplier's account in order to cancel his amount that is due in his accounts. So we are making the settlement. I will start by recording the customer, or the supplier, sorry. So I'll come to SP chart or SP account. I'm going to choose the supplier. It was supplier Smith. So I'm going to make supplier Smith's settlement. When I use the tab key, it will lead me to this entry comment. I click on supplier Smith. Then I'm going to debit this supplier by the 1,119,215. 1,192,500. I'm going to debit this account number. So you see, when I debit the account number, you see automatically cash account appears here. So if I click here and I use tab key, I click on cash, automatically it is going to credit this journal by this same amount. So this is actually the settlement of the suppliers. So you realize that all purchase transactions are done in the purchase journal, and the settlements are being done in the cash or bank journal. In no way you should go in the purchase journal and put a class 5 account. It is not proper, because at the end of the period we'll have to trace all the cash transactions through the cash journal. We have to trace all the bank transactions through the bank journal. Remember, in the field, when we talk about the bank journal, we are talking about the the bank accounts we have in different banks. Like if we have a bank account in UBA, in CCC, in NFC, we are going to create a different journal for each of those banks, in such a way that when there's a transaction which is related to that particular bank, we can record that transaction in that journal. So I'm going to go into the month of February, and I'm going to record a sales. So I'm looking for February. This is February. I'm looking for the sales journal. This is the sales journal. I double click on it. Now for the sales journal, something is happening. Normally you were being taught, for example, in accounting, that you always record the debit element before the credit element. In the case where we are going to do something like this, where there is VAT, a sales where there is VAT, you see this customer's account will depend on what is at the level of 701 and 4431. right? Because the account of 411, which is customer, will have to sum the amount of money it is seen at the level of 701 and 4431. So in this software, we are not going to follow exactly this step, but this debits and the credit accounts is going to be the same. What are we going to do? We'll start by recording 701. We'll not start by recording 411. No, we'll start by recording 701. Why? Because after 701, we'll have to calculate VAT on this 701, and this VAT will have to calculate automatically when it sees 701. Now, this customer's account is going to automatically sum what is in 701 and in 4431. So that is supposed to be done automatically. If I come at the level of my journal in / accounting 100, let's say this transaction was done on the 7th, I'm going to use the tab key, come at the level of the general account number and put the account number for sales of goods. I use the tab key and I click on it here. Then I use the tab key. Automatically you see how it is bringing me to the credit side, because SARS has a nature of account and understand that 701 is sales of goods. It is a revenue, and revenue are by default credited, or they have by default credit balances. So I'm going to make the sales of goods to be 1 million. I click on enter. After sales of goods, I'm going to record the what? The VAT, which is VAT invoice on sales 44. So when I click on it, you see automatically it has calculated 19.25% of 1 million and he has credited it. When I press enter, that's okay. It means we are going accordingly. So after this, now I'll have to debit what? I'll have to debit the customer who is purchasing these goods. So you see, I've not actually started with customer, because when I will type here the customer in question, like I'm going to select, for example, this customer, you will see it is automatically going to debit the sum of 701 and 44313. So that is the rule. It hadn't been I started with 4011, I don't with this by debiting the customer, I will not know exactly which amount is going to be debited. But when I start with 701 before going to 4431 and I debit now the customer, you see it is going to determine the amount of money it is going to credit. For example, this transaction was done on credit. If it was done on credit, I will just stop me here. I will not go and make any settlement in the month of February. But if this transaction was actually settled and the amount we're owing this particular customer is 1,192,500, you can now go in a settlement journal, which is going to be the cash or bank journal. Let's say this one is done by a bank journal. I'm going to open a bank journal, expand this. Then you realize that when it was sales of goods, I debited the customer. So to remove this, I'm going to credit the customer against the debit of the bank account. So yeah, I'll start by taking the customer's account 4111. I'm going to normally I'm supposed to do that at the level of the third party's account. 4111 is customer John. I'll just take him, I'll use the tab key, and you will see it will automatically place it on the credit side, because it understands that customers generally customers are to give us money, so cash or bank is going to be debited because money is coming in, and against the third party which was previously debited in the journal of sales. So you see, it is very logical. It is waiting that I should put the amount 1,192,500. So I press on the enter key, you see automatically 521 will appear. So this 521 is appearing because when we're creating the journal code for bank, we assign this 521 to be the centralized account or the control account of this journal. So when I press the tab key at this level of general account number, I press tab key again, I select bank, and you see it has automatically debited the account or the amount which was credited, and I press enter, and that's all about the settlement. So basically, that is how we make transaction in / accounting 100. It means that what? It means that if I'm making a transaction which is not directly related to purchase, which is not directly related to sales, I can make it in a general journal or journal for other transactions. For example, salaries. If salaries at the end of the month were not paid, it means that we're owing our employees. It means that in we can create even a salary journal, we can create, or we can equally do that in other expenses journal. In that case, we are going to go in the general journal and record it in in against the employees, meaning we're going to make something like 6 6, which represents salaries, against the employees 4 2, before we come and settle them in the cash account or in the bank account. So what you have to understand is that transactions in Sash Accounting 100 are very specific. If you are making a purchase transaction, no cash or bank account should be located in the purchase transaction. If you are doing the sales transaction, same thing. Cash and bank are being done in their respective journal. So basically, that is what we had to show you for this video. Some will also be like, how do I open or create an opening balance sheet? The opening balance sheet, for example, if they tell you that the opening balance sheet is as at this first month, you just open it and you are just debiting all the assets and crediting all the liabilities. At the end of the period, if everything balances good and fine. But if you are making the balance sheet or in the course of the year or the end of period, and that balance sheet is not balancing, you have to balance it. And if you are making, for example, a profit, how would you balance it? By putting it on the liability side, which here will represent the credit side. If it is a loss, how do we balance the balance sheet when it is a loss? We just put the negative amount on the liability side, and in this case we're just going to put a negative amount on the credit side. So basically, that is how we record transactions. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can leave a comment in the YouTube channel, and we'll always be there to answer to your difficulties. If there's anything you want us to do for you when it comes to this software, you can just drop a comment in the below the video. You subscribe, and you don't forget to share the video. It might help somebody somewhere around. So you see, when we record a transaction, this is how it looks like. So see you in the next video, and be blessed.